InDigital is on a mission to improve the 911 industry. Our goal is to create something better to go above and beyond the current standards. Our passion for creating the most advanced, well-designed solutions led to our position as an industry leader in next-gen core services. For the millions of calls processed over our emergency IP networks, to our Text for 911 solution, Texty, to our disaster recovery and backup solution, Mevo, it's easy to see we love what we do. For more information, check us out at www.indigital.net.
Rapid Deploy believes that every public safety agency, regardless of size, should have access to the data they need when it matters most. That's why since 2016, our mission has been to reduce emergency response times and improve public safety. We are the industry's only integrated emergency response platform. Our web-based cloud platform includes analytics, mapping, dispatch, and mobile apps, purpose-built for 911 in the 21st century. Visit www.rapiddeploy.com to learn how we enable effective, efficient, data-driven emergency response.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy, and as always, there's a lot of stuff going on. I just put a card out showing all the guests that are going to be coming on to the podcast, and I am beyond excited. I think there's about 8 episodes that are coming up that are already booked and ready to go. And this is a weekly show, so I've got 8 weeks already that I have piled up there. That is just going to be some amazing guests, and it's going to be a good time. And thank you to the patrons. Thank you so much to all of you. I wouldn't be able to do what I do without you, as well as those who listen, share, and support, and especially for the sponsors InDigital and Rapid Deploy. So thank you all so much for that. It is November 16th. It's a Monday. Oof, shit. Went to bed late, woke up early, had the Saved by the Bell theme song in my head for whatever reason. And if you don't know Saved by the Bell, look it up. Apparently there's a reboot show that's coming out soon on a TV station or app. I don't know, something like that. Either way, we are here and we're about to get started. I'm excited to have these 2 guests on, and I can currently see them on the bottom on my screen, and I'm going to bring them up here in a moment. My guests today are Jacque and Josi, and they are 911 dispatchers out of Metcom, and they are out of Alaska. Hey.
Hey, what's happening?
Oh, not much. You both look great. I know one of you has been off for a few days. The other one just got off.
Can you tell who?
Yes, guess which?
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Josi has been off.
Josie's nice and refreshed.
And Jackie's working like crazy. 16, 14, 12.
Yeah. 16 last night. So
yeah, just came off 16.
Yeah.
Jeez. So yeah, we were emailing back and forth, and I ended up seeing that and flashback to, I think I even told you, like my longest one was like an 18-hour one, and I do remember those 16-hour shifts as well, and those were hell, especially when if there wasn't anything going on at the time, man, and you're just you're sitting there kind of waiting. It doesn't always happen in 911, but when it does, you're just kind of chilling, like, all
There
right,
are times, yeah.
it's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Well, and it's like it'll be like completely like, okay, I'm gonna get all my Christmas shopping done. Here we go. I got it on the basket, and then boom. Okay, we got a DV in progress. Here we go. Everybody's on the phone. Okay, I got to page this out, and you're just like, okay, well, I guess this is gonna wait. And then by the time it's all done, you look over and you're like, why the hell did I put that in my cart? So it's a nice little pause. You're like, oh no, she won't like that. Nope.
Right.
You go from boredom shopping to what the.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But that also goes along with eating. I know it did with me, man. Like I would be sitting there and a couple hours would pass. Like, how did I go through this whole can of cashews? Like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Like I'm adding more to my physique.
It's funny. I have had the opposite. I've been working all graveyards and I don't like eating at night. So I have like this
Oh.
forced what's it called?
Intermittent
Fasting, like completely unintentional. And I'll get off shift and go home and go to bed and wake up and go back to shift. And then like the next morning, I'm like, when was the last time I actually ate something? Like,
Oh.
and just because I don't get hungry at night. I don't like eating at night. I've lost like 35 pounds since I started working nights. And I'm
Nice.
like,
Well done.
it was not intentional.
Yeah, me, I have to work at it. You
Yeah.
know.
I know.
I've lost weight just because I got a really bad A1C reading, and so I'm like, okay, I got to do something. And so now, and she's like, oh, maybe I should do that too. I'm like, wow, you're losing weight just doing nothing. So, I'll work at it. You benefit from
Oh
it.
well, I kid you not. Tonight, this conversation happened because my coworkers, she came in and she's like, oh, I'm like, oh, you got a headache? She's like, I get migraines. I'm like, and like three of the other ladies on shift, they're like, yeah, we get them too. And I'm like, wait, what? Okay, wait. Is this what I have to look forward to? Migraines and diabetes? Like, I don't wait, what's happening right now? Because everybody gets migraines and everybody has diabetes in MacCom. I'm like, what's happening? And everybody brings in donuts.
Okay, so one of the things that I didn't mention right off the bat, for those who are watching and listening, you are also both part of ABC's new show Emergency Call.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be talking a little bit about that as well. But and you know what, we're going to talk about some of those pieces that you were just talking about as well, because
Yeah.
man, I didn't have high blood pressure or acid reflux before I started working in dispatch, but that was also, yeah, I mean, of course, that was my own fault. The stress part, however, so okay, check this out. Before we get into your stories, I remember going to the doctor, and family doctor, who's known him for years, and he goes, Ricardo, you need to you need to find a way to not be so stressed out. Like your blood pressure is so high. He goes, and your neck is real stiff. And he starts walking closer and closer as he's talking. I'm like, what the hell is he doing? And out of nowhere, he goes,
Oh,
cracked my neck both ways out of nowhere. And I just sat there and he goes, how do you feel? I said, so much pressure was just released. That was amazing, but that was also scary.
right. Yeah.
Why didn't you just tell me you were going to do that? And he goes, would you have let me do it? And I said, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
Well,
you would have
or
been
you'd, like tense up.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
no, I go to the chiropractor weekly and get massages weekly.
I
Like,
will
it's
say I have
necessary.
started going to the massage therapist weekly since I've started this job. I
And
mean,
it's
before it was like this luxury, like, oh, every once in a while, okay, like once a year, like I'm
yeah,
gonna go get a massage, and now it's like, I'm gonna
Necessary.
need a massage.
right. Yeah,
And
exactly. And it's not bougie at all, man. Like I know my brother used to joke with me, be like, man, you're all bougie and shit. You're going and getting massages and stuff. Like, no, dude. Like
Yeah.
it
I
needs
must function.
like,
yeah,
yeah, I have to. But my doctor, when he was telling me that I need to stop being so stressed out and all, I said, do you know what I do for a living? And he goes,
right.
actually, no, I don't. And I said, well, I'm a 911 dispatcher and supervisor. And he goes, oh, I guess you can't do that, huh?
Yeah.
Can't
Right.
get out
Yeah.
of the stress. I said, no, man, I can't. And
I'm not gonna
oh,
lie. I actually use the other so the kids are going to like remote school and stuff, and I got my daughter's little email where she's like, "Oh, I have all my work done." And I get an email from the teacher. She hasn't accessed her classes in 3 weeks, and I'm like, mm-hmm. So I sit her down and I'm like, "You understand that school is your job? Do you know what happens if I don't do my job?" She's like, "What?" I said, "People die." And my husband's like, maybe rein it in a little. I'm like, she needs to understand the importance here.
Exactly. Like, come on.
I know she could be like, I didn't turn my math homework and somebody died.
Right.
So his mom said it's my job and her job if she doesn't do it. Like,
Right.
Like, I thought it was a teachable moment. I'm like, you don't have to do what I do, but I'm just saying.
You know what? That works for me. I will be straight up with my kids. Like there was there was one time that my younger well, he's 16 now, but he was about 5 or 6 maybe, and he was jumping on the couch. And I said, "Dude, you need not to jump on the couch." I said, "If you fall over, you're gonna break your leg. The bone is gonna be hanging out and stuff. And I'm not gonna take you to the hospital because I'm grilling today." And
yes.
I started
Yes.
laughing with him, and he's just, "For real?" And then so he had a friend over, and she's jumping on the couch, and he's just sitting there, and she's like, "Come on, Logan, jump with me." And he goes, "No, don't do it." So I said the same thing, and he goes, "He's not joking. He loves grilling. He's not joking." I had
I know. I tell my kids,
her
I
mom.
will not dial 911. You better get it together.
Right? Like 911 will never happen. Like, just so you know, never gonna happen. Well, and like my husband, so my kids, my poor kids, they've got me as a dispatcher mom and then dad as a police officer. So they're like screwed. Like we'll be driving through town and they'll be like, you want to end up like him, like a homeless guy, like, you know, like a druggie on the corner. Like, this is where you're gonna go if you don't start doing your homework, you know?
And I'm just telling them that people will die if you don't do your homework. So, I mean,
Oh,
you
that is
have
so
to use
funny,
what you
man.
know. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, you do. And there have been a couple times where my son had a friend over and he fell and he just kind of scratched himself, but he was bleeding and I got a cloth and I started going through EMD protocol with him.
Right.
And for those who are watching and listening, the
Put
emergency medical
pressure
system.
on the wound. Do not raise it and look.
Right, and yeah, and I was going through the whole thing with him, and I didn't even realize until I looked down at him, and he's just, "Oh, okay, Mr. Martinez," and I was like, "Did I just really do that right now?" I started
Verbatim.
laughing. Yeah, and he's like, "I'm gonna go play now." I was like, "Yeah, go ahead."
No, just rest in the most comfortable position and wait for help to arrive.
Yeah, pre-arrivals.
Put your dogs away.
Oh my god, that is
Yeah.
so funny. So, for the both of you, you have some, ranging years here in public safety. Jackie, you're going about, 9 months, and Josie, you're on 7 years.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and let's start with Jackie. So how did you get into public safety to begin with? Like, how did this all start for you?
Well, it's funny. 15 years ago,
Rear end.
I was gonna be an EMT,
Mhm.
and I got my EMT and everything, and then like just life, and little known fact, I have 8 children, and so I've always been a stay-at-home mom until I was like, I have got to get away from these kids. I just need something for me. So I've like had uh, a plethora of careers, I guess, or dabbled in everything.
Mhm.
Um,
And she's good at everything,
except
like everything.
so is she. Don't let her lie. So I actually started. I was went and worked at the prison. I was in the started out in the mailroom, and then I went out in the education department, and then I moved over to correctional officer because I was like, I'm going to be the superintendent. And I needed to get the experience on the actual, enforcement side of the prison. And I became a correctional officer, and then I became miserable. Like I hated
Oh.
everyone.
Mhm.
I
Oh,
was
she got ugly. She's not an
angry.
ugly person, and she like
Yeah.
I'm like you're like
So,
physically ugly right
so
now.
I would literally
Oh.
get off my shifts because I did 712s at the prison. I'd get off my shift and drive, like I would pass Matcom on my way home, and I would just pull in just so I could spend some time with Josie. And I'm up there in my uniform, just sitting there, and I'd put the headset on and just listen to the calls and watch everything. And I'm like, this is so cool. This is awesome.
Mhm.
And but my husband and I had to sit down and talk about the schedule because being one, we're understaffed, and then we do a seniority. So low man on the totem pole, which was Josie at the time, gets the forced overtime, and you basically live there.
Mhm.
And so it was a process of talking with the family, making sure that they were prepared for when I got released to be pretty much MIA for until we get somebody else trained anyway. So there's somebody under me. Um, but finally we decided, okay, yeah, I'm just way too miserable, and my family didn't like me, I didn't like me, my sister didn't even like me, and so
Mm-mm.
I'm like, all right, I'll apply. And so I got hired at Macom, and honestly I think being her sister going in, I would think, she's really good at what she does. And I know that the management, one of the concerns they had was hiring a sister because, some siblings don't have the best relationships, I guess, and Josie and I do, so it's not a problem. But I think that was one of the concerns they had when they hired me. And then so I started dispatching in March, and during the show that when they were airing, I was actually a trainee. That's why I had Kristen, my trainer, by me at all times. Like we don't usually stack up two dispatchers on one console.
Yeah.
Like she's standing by me the
Makes
entire
sense
time because
now.
I'm in training. Like I'm not released to do anything on my own yet. And so, but it was a really, really good choice. The overtime's pretty rocky, but my family, I don't know, they just kind of fell in step. I have four grown adult children,
Mhm.
and I have four that are still in the house, and then I have four grandchildren, and they just kind of all just like support me in my
I think
job.
it helped that they saw that I was doing it for a year and a half
Yeah.
before you started too, so they knew what to
Yeah.
expect. It was
Well, and watching her, like fully embracing, okay, this is what we're going to expect. I think that's was incredibly instrumental in my family going, okay, it's okay, this is normal. So
Yeah.
um whereas a lot of people don't have that. So that's
Yeah,
how I
no,
got in it.
for sure. Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to have. Those who are watching, those who are listening right now, if you're thinking about getting into public safety like this, whether it be 911 or any other of the disciplines, that's one of the things that you have to know going in, that you're going to miss a lot of time. There's going to be
Mhm.
a lot of things that you're going to miss out on. Like my son, I mentioned he's 16 now. I recorded an episode a year or two ago where I was talking um, about the times that I missed, and he's like, "You weren't really around here because we didn't see you at all."
Yeah.
And I wish if I could go back in time, that would be one thing that I would tell myself is you need to make sure that the family understands that you're going to be missing a lot
Mhm.
of what's going on because we learned as we went along,
Right.
and some of it was good and some of it was bad. There was family and friends were like they would invite us to a lot of the parties, but I always had to work. It was
Mhm.
always there, and we were short staffed, so there was tons of overtime. We were getting forced in for that as well, and then eventually we would see stuff on social media and be like, "Oh, they didn't invite because we weren't going or anything, so they probably thought we were pissed or something." But no,
Yeah.
my ass was working.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
but
actually happened. My family, they ended up doing they went to a concert or something, and I'm like, how? I got super butthurt about it. I'm like, what? Where was my invite? Like, how come? And they just were like, we just assumed you were working, so we didn't even throw it out there. And
Yeah.
I'm like, but I wasn't working that week, like
right,
the
the one
one
time.
weekend of the year,
for
But
for Halloween, I took a bunch of supplies to work leading up to Halloween because I make all my kids' costumes. And so I'm like making all the costumes and stuff. And then Halloween came and I had to work a 16. So uh, everybody got ready. Josie had it off. And
I worked
well,
Halloween.
the Halloween party was the night
Okay.
before. So everybody got ready for the Halloween party. And then I'm like, no, you all better get your asses here because I need a picture. So like my entire family comes, and my husband's a rodeo clown, my kids are like one was a werewolf, one was an elf, one was a pirate, one was a steampunk. So they all come up and they all file into Matcom, and I'm sitting there, I'm a dispatcher in the family picture, for our Halloween. And then Josie
Perfect.
went to the party, so I got pictures all night sitting on console of this
Oh,
great
that's
party, and I'm like, you're assholes.
Here I'm all like, "Oh, that's good. You were able to get pictures." And you're like,
Yeah,
"Crap."
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah,
Oh, that is excellent.
but
So one of the questions I usually ask people is, "What was your training like?" Well, we literally got to see
right.
what your training was like. So I guess in this sense, because this is something that I've never had on the show before, what was that like for you? And on top of that, the fact that you've got people in there filming while you're training as well.
You know what was really funny about having the film crew there? It like I didn't really even notice them. It was more there were just more people to hang out with.
Mhm.
We shot the shit with them, and like I never really noticed. Oh my gosh, there's a camera there. Oh my gosh, there's a camera there. It was just we just I just did me, and so I know that I think it probably affected part of my training in that, when like the big calls were coming, and I clearly am not ready for like the pursuit and stuff like that. I'm not at that level yet. And so those ones where they're like, okay, move over. I'm like, okay, you got this. But it didn't it I mean, one, I don't know any different because they were there the whole time.
Right, yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know how it changed my training.
Well, yeah, what's funny is we weren't supposed to be on the show.
No.
They like did the whole like, hey, who wants to be on it? And I was like, whatever, I didn't reply.
Actually,
and then
my first week of orientation, our supervisor came in and said, "Oh, so ABC's talking about this, doing the show," and like that was all I knew about it. When
And-
they hadn't even decided yet.
yeah, so like the interest email went out and I was like, whatever, and didn't do anything with it. And then
It's like 3 days.
what
3 days before they started filming.
yeah, it was the week before they all got here. They found out that I was actually going to be going to weekend nights with the rest of the crew that was going to be on there in the television crew. And Rhonda got a hold of me. She's like, hey, they're going to start filming next week and you're not on there. Like you're supposed to be on there, but you're not. Sorry, my battery keeps doing something weird. So would you be interested in doing it? And Jackie's going to be with Kristen too. So, if Laura could get her information as well. And I was like, yeah, just have her send it to Jackie and I'll send it and we'll fill it out or whatever. And then,
I'm in training and my boss walks by and he goes, Josie's getting you into something. And I'm like, what?
yeah. And
Okay.
I'm like, well, and so we, filled it out really fast. And they're like, oh, can you send us an audition tape? And,
No. She left out the part where they found out that there were twins.
yeah. And they're like,
they were like,
what? And so we did our audition tape together. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I was like, do you just want to do it together? And she's like, I mean, that would be cool. And it was funny because afterwards she's like, yeah, we were like, oh my gosh, there's twins. Like, this could be really great. And then she's like, and then I was like, oh boy, like, but like, let's wait for their audition video. And then she's like, and then we got it. And Jackie and I were we went and sat on a rock and we're like, okay, we're not sure what to say here. And she's like, and we watched it and I'm like, yes, it's perfect. I was just like, okay.
So
Oh,
were those
that's awesome.
people like the whole crew came up and were like, hey, when are we having a bonfire? Let's go out shooting. What are we gonna do? And like they're just people, and I'm gonna show them Alaska, like because they're from California. So.
Yeah. No, what was really great was the second time the show came up, they were setting up during the week when Jackie was working,
Mhm.
and I wasn't working at that time, and I got up there like 3 days later, and Jackie wasn't there, and I walked in, and they're like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Hey, nice to meet you," and they're like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" I'm like, "I'm Josie," and they're like, "What?" Like, they thought they're like, "We've met you. I don't understand," and I'm like,
Right.
"No, I'm the other one."
Oh wait, I have a quick story, and Josie knows the story real quick.
Mhm.
This should you not happened 2 weeks ago. We had a trooper that we work with on a daily.
Mhm.
He saw the show, I guess, and he comes walking up into MatCom. I've spoken to him. Josie has spoken to him. He's seen the show, and he sits down and he's eating his dinner.
Oh gosh, this was
Josie's at this console. I'm at this console. So he's looking at both of us, and he goes, "So are there's twins in at MatCom?" And Josie's like, "Come again?" And he's like, Josie's like, Jackie, could you just look at McKinney real quick, or look at the trooper real quick?
Mhm.
And we turn, and he's like, oh, fuck.
Well, I see it now.
That's funny.
I'm like, really? Like you've sat here and had conversations with both of us at the same time. Like your observation skills are a little
Yeah. And we're like,
scary
maybe you
right
just
now.
shut down because you're on break. Maybe hopefully.
Right, yeah. Not really paying attention because the
Yeah.
meeting is like,
Yeah.
yeah. So this is like that, huh?
Yeah.
So
Anyway,
But yeah, the training with having the film crew there. I mean, it was it. I don't know. I don't know what the difference would have been.
Yeah.
I had great training. It's excruciating. It's
You know,
the most difficult. Dispatching is the most humbling thing I have ever done in my whole life. Like Josie said, oh yeah, she's good at everything. It's the very first time in my entire life that I started something and I was like, I don't know if I'm capable of doing this, because it was so much. I mean, it's like you think you're good at something, and then like it's like when you're Michelle explained it to me tonight. She's like, it's like you're flexing muscles that you didn't know you had. You know, like those little muscles that you didn't even know you had in your body. I'm like, no, it's like flexing muscles on another body in another realm, another plane of existence. That's what it feels like. Like I don't recognize anything that is happening right now. And I think it was like humbling is the perfect word for what training for dispatching was.
it was really great too, because we're both very confident people, and we're very competent people as well.
Yeah.
And watching her, I mean, I didn't enjoy watching her struggle. Although I was like, there's no way you cannot make this. Like, this is like, you will
Good, you're gonna
embarrass
make me
me.
look bad.
Like,
Yeah.
you can't not make it. So suck it up, Buttercup.
Right.
But it was really interesting, because like the first couple weeks when she was doing call taking, she's like, I got this. Like, this
Yeah.
is easy. Like, I got
Call
this.
taking,
This is
Kate,
Kate.
I got this. I
And
can
then-
call take all day.
Yeah.
Let's
And
do
then
this.
she started doing dispatch, and she's like, oh shit.
Yeah.
She's like, what is I can't.
Because
Josie.
because in our center, we have call takers
Right.
that don't dispatch,
Mhm.
but our dispatchers also call take. So it's not like I'm only going to get the guys out on the radio. Like, we answer the 911 calls, and as we're trying to get the information, we're actually like, where's this guy at? We need to get him here, So like there's just so many facets to it that you don't even, and you have 6 screens in front of you. You're like, okay, here we go. This screen's this. Okay. I mean, it's the ultimate multitasking that is next level that I.
And that's what I was going to ask you as well, how that worked for you coming from the background that you had coming into dispatch. Now you had the experience there, your sister's in this, you would go in and listen, and every now and then, so it wasn't completely overwhelming as someone coming in who's never done a sit along, or
No.
but now you are there, and
Yeah.
you are the one who have you have all these screens in front of you, and you're training and taking these calls.
Yeah.
And I remember some of those pieces getting overwhelming as well, especially the dispatch piece.
Yeah.
And if there was a pursuit that came on, and they're like, "Okay, it's your turn to take it. You're going to be the one to take it." I'm like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "All right, let's do this." And before you know it, you're already done with it, and you're just.
What just happened?
Right.
Did I screw that up? I don't know.
I blacked out. What happened here?
Right?
Yeah. I actually
Where'd those donuts go?
yeah. I have one of our medics. The first night I was on EMS, which is our, for the borough, dispatching the fire and the ambulance. My first night with her was a complete shit show. Like, afterwards,
That's a common thing with you, though.
that's what I was getting at. Like,
Are you
afterwards, she actually texts me on my personal phone. It's
Mhm.
like, what the ever loving just happened? And I'm like, what? I don't know. And she's
Yeah.
like,
Are you the magnet?
yeah, I am.
She is.
I
I'm
am.
not. I'm a white cloud.
Okay. Look, tonight I sat on EMS,
Mhm.
and our very first call, it went code red, stemming to the hospital, which is like a heart attack, and their heart's going to explode. And she heard my voice on the radio, and I'm surprised she knows how to tell us apart,
Yeah,
because
most
we have
people
the
can't.
same voice on the radio. And I look at my phone after I hang up the 911, and I look at my phone. She's like, "Oh no, we can't be doing this again." Like something like that. I'm like, I'm sorry. And so
I can't not work EMS.
Yeah,
Like, it has to.
I know.
with
I mean,
rotation, but-
yeah.
It's funny though, because she is like, she tends to be I've always been a white cloud. Like,
Mhm.
my first agency that I worked for, my deputies on my days off, they'd call and be like, "Hey, you wanna do a ride along tonight? Because I have a lot of reports and I don't need to have any calls tonight. And we know that nothing comes in when you're working, and maybe it'll work when you're not working too." And yeah, I would go for a ride along, and nothing. Like, they get all the reports done, and I worked a 40-hour week once,
Mhm.
which hasn't happened in years. But
I was like,
yeah, my first agency, I worked a 40-hour week. I had one 911 call, and it was a cow in the road. So nothing happens when I'm working.
And then I like just drive by Matcom and shit pops off. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm just gonna stay in my house on my days off.
So then, okay, so Josie, how did you get into public safety then to begin with? How does your story begin?
She stole it from me.
I did not. So actually it was her best friend in high school, has been in 911 since she graduated college, and we've always been friends. And I've always been an admin person, and I was kind of wanting to get back to Eastern Oregon.
And customer service.
Yeah, I was living in Western Washington, and that's not exactly my type of place. It was over by Portland area, and this job opening came open in Eastern Oregon. And my girlfriend knew that was something that I was interested in. She's like, "Hey, there's an opening," and I was like, "You know what? I'm gonna do it." So I talked to my husband at the time, and I was like, "Hey, what do you think?" And he's like, "I mean, sure, go ahead, apply for it." One good reason he's my ex is because he didn't think I'd get the job. So, yeah. So,
All right.
So I did, and I'm like, "Okay, we're moving," and he's like,
bottom of the barrel.
Okay, we don't get that personal. And so I said, "Okay, well, we're moving," and so we did. We moved back over to Eastern Oregon, and I started 911 there, and I loved it. And yeah, and it's funny because everybody. I was thinking the same thing about you earlier when you were talking. Apparently, we're really loud.
You sound fine to me. So.
Okay, cool. So, but yeah, we moved over there, and it was funny because all my friends, when I told them what I was going to be doing, they're like, "Oh my god, that's perfect for you." And because I've always been doing multitasking and stuff, and I've always been very pro police and very pro law enforcement and stuff, and so like that's perfect for you. That's gonna be great. And I did. I started, and I loved it, and started out in a really small agency, but it was really cool because we did the fire, EMS, and police, and then I got divorced, and then got remarried later on, and moved back over to the west side, where I worked for Oregon State Police, which was just all troopers. And then when we moved up here to Alaska, I started at MATCOM, which is really cool because it's troopers, fire and EMS, and police. So it was all it was really cool because it had the same radio system as my first agency and the same CAD system as my second agency. So it was a nice little, it was a perfect mesh of both of them. So unfortunately the training was still the same, and I felt like I was going to quit, like every single agency is so different, and you think you got it, and you're like, "No, I got this," and stuff. And then you start, you're like, "I don't have this." But
well, and I think watching her when I would go in and sit console with her, it was like this false sense of security of like, "Oh, dude, I could totally do that." Because she's just zipping through it. She knows what she's doing. And I'm like, "I could totally do that. Look at Josie. I can do that." And then it started, and I'm like,
she makes it look so easy.
So easy. They all do. But I mean, in all honesty, Josie is the last hire until me that's made it through the training program. And there's been 11 others since Josie started in a year and a half ago at MATCOM, 2 years ago at MATCOM, that haven't made it through the training program.
Yeah. So Jackie's the newest recruit. So for a year and a half, I was the lowest seniority. And during that time, we lost 5 people. And so
no one was coming.
I replaced 5 people, so guess where all the hours went? And that's not even true, because there's a ton of people who pick up hours and stuff. Yeah. It's just, and we say that we work a lot of hours, but there's several of us who work 16 hours all the time. Oh, yeah. And there's, it's not just the 2 of us. There's everybody in the center works a lot,
especially when it's getting down to people are just getting drug out, and our supervisor is amazing about sending that email, "Hey, we have this many hours. If we all pick up 12 hours this week, then we can spread it between all of us." And just the teamwork and people recognizing somebody's going to get burned out if we don't step in is really incredible. I mean, and when we say we're there all the time, really, I probably spend more time with my coworkers than I do with my family right now. And just knowing that security of they have my back. If I'm flagging, then somebody's going to step in and go, "Hey, I got you. Don't worry about it." We have.
I use her a lot. There was actually a couple weeks ago. I signed up for like 4 16-hour shifts in a row, and like
Yeah.
the third one came, and I'm like, what am I doing? Wait, you're not working? Like, hey, you need to take that 4 hours, and I'll work my 12, but I can't do another 16. You got this? Like, you got this 16 for me, because I'm dying right now, like
Well,
dying.
that's awesome. Then
Yeah.
you're able to do that, to go back and
Yeah.
forth. Yeah.
Well, it was funny because Jackie's like, oh, it's got to go out for bid and everything. I no, fun fact, I'm the lowest and you're the next one lowest. So, and everybody else passed on it. So guess what?
By
It's a
default,
program.
tag you're it.
Yeah. By default.
If
Oh,
you
that,
want it. So
how many people work on at a time, and how big is the area that you all cover?
oh, you know this one.
Yeah, we have 5 people
No, I'll
on.
answer that one. You answer
Okay,
the area.
we cover 52,000 square miles
Mhm.
of Alaska wilderness, basically.
And it is,
you know,
that includes villages and
Mhm.
small. So we dispatch for Wasilla PD, which is covers about 10,000 population, 10,000, and then we dispatch for the troopers, which bumps it up to about 100,000 people, and then that's
I think
all.
it's more like 180.
Yeah, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
Wow.
And yeah, and so, and it's what's really great is we have on our shift in dispatch we have minimum, like bare minimum, 5. Sometimes there's 4 when we have just a person on standby in the middle of the night on weekdays. And then we'll have a standby call taker, which if shit hits the fan, then they come in.
Right.
But that's something new. So we have 5 people on. So we have 1 call taker, 1 on the EMS and fire, 1 on troopers desk, 1 on WPD, and then we have 1 on our NCIC desk, which does the warrant entry and gives returns and enters all the stolen items and missing persons and stuff. So that's our base. That's what we have. And then
But we have more than I've never seen above base.
when shit's hitting the fan, when we have tap channels and stuff, somebody will come.
Oh yeah. That's true.
So, and then to cover all of that, our officers, we have more ambulances and fire personnel than we do officers. We have WPD, usually minimum they have 3 officers on, and troopers on a good night we'll have 5
on a good night.
Wow.
So we have 8 officers to cover 52,000 square feet. My husband's saying 4. There's 4 officers on WPD. Not every night.
There were 3 on tonight.
Yeah. So there. Yeah. You want to come? You want to come join this?
What's up, man?
Well, and like with that broad, distance.
Mhm.
I mean, if we get a call up in Talkeetna, which is 95 miles north of Wasilla, and then we get another active disturbance in
Palmer.
Sutton,
Oh yeah.
which is 40 miles the other way. So you have 150 miles between the 2 troopers and 2 active disturbances. And when there's an active, like the other night, I got one where a guy was trying to kick in another guy's door with a knife, and he's up in bum.
Oh my! You were on the phone for like an hour.
Yeah, he called me Angel several times
Oh.
because I was like, "You need to go hide."
Craziest night for me. You weren't working.
Wait,
yet.
I'm not done with my
Oh,
story.
sorry.
So he's up there. He's like, "They gotta get here. I just really need them to get here."
Mhm.
And I'm like, I understand. They've been en route since we've been on the phone. And he's like, yeah, I think he's gonna kick in my door. Yeah, they just really need to get here. And I'm like, sir, is as nice it would be. We have not invented time travel, and unfortunately,
She actually
you
said it. It
chose
was
to
amazing.
live way the hell out there. So they're en route, but it is also 20 degrees out, fresh snow on top of ice. So they're coming code. But you're going to be sitting tight for about an hour. So do you have a locked door you can get behind when this guy knocks your door down? Because that's what's going to happen here. Like you need to get behind a door. And yeah.
I think being real with people actually does help. I noticed when I would dispatch, I would just be straight up with them. And sometimes I would say, sir or ma'am, whichever. The officer's not just sitting around the corner waiting. They're coming from like a few townships away, so it's going to be a little bit. And then they would kind of calm down and say, "Oh, okay."
It was great one night, Kristen. So we have this gal who calls in all the time because she has neighbors that she doesn't like, and she called in, and then her dad calls in.
This happened like last week.
Yeah, her dad calls in. He's like, "We need a trooper out there right now." Blah blah blah. And she's like, "Well, we only have so many." He's like, "I don't want to hear about that." And she said, "Well, we're hiring. So if you'd like to become a trooper, to up the staff, we're hiring. Just so you know, like, because that's the thing we get all the time. I don't want to hear that.
Right.
My emergency is more important than what they're on right now. And I'm like, you heard of firework. I'm sorry, that's not, you know, honestly, it's so funny because people are always like, I don't know how you do your job. And I'm like, you have no idea. The hardest part of our job is honestly dealing with the stuff that's
It's keeping your mouth shut.
Mhm.
And you just want to be like,
Well, yeah, that too. And you,
Yeah.
Josie, with the customer service and everything. I mean, those types of things. So before I started in public safety, I was working in retail. I had managed a couple stores already, and I was, geez, I was like 18 or 19. Damn, that was a long time ago. And but that
You're a youngin. We've already established this.
Yeah.
You're the
With
young one here.
that dealing with people that way, face to face and all, helped me when dealing with them on the phone as well, because you end up learning how to say certain things
Mhm.
and still sound professional, of course.
Yeah. They actually call me it's a 1096 for us, which is a
Same.
mental health. Yeah.
Right. Yep.
1096 whisper.
Yeah.
I've gotten marriage proposals. I have one gal who thinks that
You're her authority.
she actually said I'm now her authority, and she only takes direction from God, and now I'm her authority.
Perfect.
So
So
essentially, she called Josie God.
I'm
Like,
God.
We need
I
that
know.
kind of.
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I was like, you guys
God
heard
herself.
you heard it from her. Like, I'm it.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, but it's that whole like being real with them too. Is
Yeah.
all right. So you know,
Well,
talking crazy stuff.
when you were in training then, when you were first starting out, I mean, was it overwhelming? Like, what was that like for you going in training, coming from I mean,
Honestly,
you had all of it in the beginning. I guess
yeah,
when you were making your first switches, but when you very first started, what was that like for you?
the honestly the hardest part for me was dealing with my coworkers,
Mhm.
because there was a huge trust issue. Because they've been doing it for a while,
Right.
and yeah, I come from customer service and stuff, but they um, wanted to make sure that I understood the gravity of the situation.
Mhm.
That it wasn't just oh, I'm just dealing with another customer. Thank you, dear. That I'm officer safety is so important. And so my biggest challenge in training for my first center was gaining their trust. And there was actually one gal who just absolutely would not budge on it. And I finally said, hey, I was a smoker at the time. I'm like, let's go to smoke. Let's have a talk. Because she was quite a bit younger. Because I came into the game a little late. I was 34, 35 when I started 911. And she was like 24, 25. And I was like, let's go have a talk, and I said, I understand, I understand that you don't trust me, and that's fair. I was like, but you got to give me a chance, and I understand the gravity of the situation too. Don't act like I don't. You need to give me a chance, though. I'm not. I understand that this is a lot of people. Yes, 911 is taking care of the customers and stuff, but bottom line, my number one concern is officer safety.
Right.
And people get so frustrated. Why are you asking all these questions? Because I'm not sending my people to you if I don't know what they're going to. Like, I'm not sending them into a firefight, with
A pencil.
so and I need to know if you have
Yeah,
a pencil or a
exactly.
gun,
Yeah.
So actually there was one day I was on the phone with a guy who had a gun, but he wouldn't tell me where it was at. And Rhonda actually, because I got really loud on the phone, I got my mom voice, and I was like, "You need to tell me now where it is." And he's like, "Doesn't matter. I threw it away." No, and so I got my mom voice, and Rhonda's like, "Josie, you're getting a little." And I'm like, "This dude will not tell me where the gun is, and I got an officer going there." Like, so it's a little frustrating, but that was the biggest challenge for me on my first agency was just getting the trust of my peers,
Yeah.
like making them understand that I understood the gravity of the situation. It wasn't just oh yeah, I'm answering the call. I'm just answering phone calls and stuff.
I
And
can I can
yeah,
relate with you there. When
yeah,
I started out at the last agency that I was in, where I finished off my career, and I was in training, nobody talked to me.
hmm
And I thought, so I remember coming home one time and telling my wife, like, "I don't think this is right for me, like, this is." I went into this thinking, like, we were gonna be a team, but no one is talking to me, so it's kinda throwing me off a bit. And there was a girl who worked there, who still works there, actually, she's a training coordinator there now, but her and I actually grew up together, went to school together, and we just happened to end up working together in dispatch. And I finally asked her, and I said, "What the hell is going on?" I said, "Do you guys not? I mean, and you knowing me for so many years, you are not even talking to me. So I kind of want to quit. Like, I don't know if I want to do this." And she goes, "No, no, no, no. Just stick it out. That's the way they do it here. They want the trainee to be with the trainer and only speak to that person and concentrate like that. When you get to like I think it was the fourth phase, the shadow phase, then it's all team stuff." And I thought, well, you guys need to change a little bit because I feel like nobody wants to be like a team or anything here, and that's kind of off-putting. And they did change it, and her being the training coordinator has completely changed a lot of that stuff. From the beginning, it was the same thing with
Well,
me.
and
I wanted to be done.
that's actually something that I tell all the new trainees when they get on the floor. We had one gal who, great personality, loved her to death, but she was pregnant when she came in, and I
Yeah.
said, "Hey, you're super cool. Don't expect to be friends with anyone until you come back from having that baby."
Yeah.
Like, and it's nothing personal, but we're not going to invest a bunch of time and then be like, peace out. We don't have you now.
And Josie actually, when I started, she actually told me that she's like, don't expect anybody to be all like warm and fuzzy until you actually get through the training and you're released. Like, just don't expect any kind of warm and fuzzies.
Except for me, I'm
Except
warm and
for,
fuzzy with everyone.
Yeah. She is.
Well, because I think it's something really important that because it's in this is not a unique situation. It's not unique to any dispatch center. I think every single center you go into, I've been in 3 now, where you walk in and you're like, they all hate me. Like, there's no love. Like, there's no love.
And you got to understand Josie's personality. She's like, but why don't they like me? A dog bit her. A dog bit her. Like a vicious bite. And she was just worried about, like, why didn't the dog like me? I'm like, I'm taking this bitch up to the mountains and shooting it in the head. And you're like, hey, what did I do? Why doesn't the dog like me? And I'm like,
okay, wait. So I didn't say it like that. I said,
No.
wait a minute.
No.
I'm a good person.
No, I know. No, but this is just, and this is where I get amused because I'm just like, she's like, but like, there's nothing not to like about me. Like, what's the dog's problem? Like, this isn't, what's, like, she's not worried about like what they think of her. She's just like, but like, I'm awesome. Like, why wouldn't this dog like me? And I'm like,
the truth. I am awesome.
Dogs sense fear, and they sense this and this. Like,
Yeah.
what the hell?
yeah, Josie's like, what? They don't like rainbows? What the hell?
Yeah.
Oh,
But that's something that, like, I mean, my personality is very like open and stuff. Well, I'm very positive, but I'm also very direct as well. Ask anyone. If you have an interview with Rhonda, she'll probably say, I can't trust Josie's mouth because she will say whatever she's thinking.
But she says it in a way that like you have to stop and go, wait, should I be offended? Like, what just happened there? Like, and like she just keeps going and
You
she
and I are
says
the
it,
same,
and they
but-
like have to stop and go, wait, okay, no, we're good. We're good. Yeah. Like,
Hey.
and then everybody else in the world says it, and they're just like, "What a bitch!" And Josie's like, "Yeah, it's all good though." It's like,
I do tend to, like, I have a saying that I like saying, I'm like, if rest assured, if I offended you, it was completely intentional.
Of course. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But no, and so, but that's just something like I try to make people feel welcome because I know that it's not even that everybody else is intentionally making them feel unwelcome, but it's
Right.
something that people need to be aware of. Like, usually when you go into most jobs, when you go into, you're joining a team and people are like, hey, welcome, it's so good to see you, I'm so glad you're here. And for dispatch, it's very different. We're like, all right, let's see if you can hang.
well, I genuinely believe that you like people a lot more than other people. Like,
This is not false. That's so false.
She likes people more than others. She sees the positive in other
This is
people.
true.
Whereas I'm very cynical and like, bitch, you better prove yourself before I give you any kind of thing. And she's just like, well, I'm sure you have potential. Let's see how this goes. And I'm like, no.
There's teaching moments. There's always teaching
Yeah,
moments.
and I'm like, you got to prove it first.
I think that there's definitely the mentality is still around in a bunch of different places. I know I had it in the first center that I was at. Well, it was a small police department. And in that time when I was there, it was I got in and I went in for my first shift, observed my trainer take one 911 call, and then it was my turn. So that was a lot of fun.
Oh, I imagine.
I did have a beginners. It was a 40-hour.
And you came back? I would have been like,
Yeah,
no.
I did. But a lot of different centers, there I think is changing as well, where they're doing kind of both. There's there's the warm and fuzzies, welcome, bring them in to keep people, because there's so many places that are short staffed, but there's still that firmness.
I
There's
think I
it's
think
still that
that's
mentality, but
I,
they're
I think
turning it
that's
around a little bit.
I think now, in a day and age that's happening now with the younger generation and everybody thinking that their feelings matter, that has to change,
Yeah.
because it's an HR night. Dispatch is an HR nightmare. It
Oh,
can be.
I bet. Yeah, I bet it can
It
be.
can be, and especially with a lot of, like, I mean, I'm gonna sound like an old lady here, but a lot of the younger generation mentality of, oh well, this should just be happening, and everybody gets a trophy, and I shouldn't. You're making me feel bad. That's not something that can happen now, as much, and they can get lawsuits if you hurt their feelings, and so
Yeah.
I think a lot of times that people are just softer now, and you have to be more careful about breaking people, which is
See this right here. When everybody was meeting me at the center, they're like, so well, first of all, they just thought we were the same person. And I'm like, no, Josie's a lot more diplomatic than me. And they like were like, what the like, oh crap. Like, what is coming into the center? Because Josie's
The
diplomatic in this gentle, like, but in your face, like she says, Josie's awesome because if somebody comes in and we all like somebody starts talking about something and we all are thinking like, I wonder this, and Josie's like, so tell me about this, and we're like, she just said it out loud, like she just put it out there, and then but it's hilarious though, because she just comes right out and just says it, and then everybody's like, yeah, what about that?
of
So
course.
we're all very thankful to have Josie, because she says the shit that all of us are like, not gonna say it, nope, not gonna ask.
I
And
would
then
have loved to have worked with the both of you.
yeah,
We would have
yeah,
had fun.
yeah,
they were hiring.
yeah.
Right. Do either of you remember like your earlier calls? I mean, Jackie, I'm sure you do, of course, for
Right, yeah.
sure. Like, I don't remember a lot of my earlier ones because I did it
Oh,
for 13 and a
her
half years.
first
But
CPR, she called me and she was pissed.
Oh, I was so mad.
She was so mad. Her
It
first
was my
CPR.
second
Oh,
one.
second. Okay.
First one was great. I mean, he overdosed on heroin. Like in mid
Great.
CPR, he jumps
I know
up and he's wide awake,
yeah,
and
I was
the
going to say that.
Yeah, right.
they're like, oh, we already gave him the Narcan and stuff, and I'm like, okay, well, like let's start CPR, and we're doing it, and he jumps up, and I'm like, woo, saved the life, but I'm like, did I know, because the Narcan kicked in, but then, and I was like,
They
I'm
did
like,
it.
woo, I
See?
finally got a CPR, and then the very next day I got another CPR, and it didn't turn out the same, and I was really really pissed because it was another overdose, and
That wasn't what she was pissed about.
no,
She died though, right?
yeah, she did,
Yeah. She
but
wasn't pissed about that either.
it was because during the call, you're like, oh man, because one, you have somebody that is not listening to your instructions because they've watched too many movies that are like, when do I breathe in
Right.
her mouth? And
Yeah.
like, I'm giving the instructions wrong for some reason. They think, like, no, I have to breathe down. I'm like, you are
We're
just as
professionals.
high as she is, and like, just listen to what I'm saying. And he wasn't doing what I was telling him.
Shocker.
And yeah, and they get there, and the EMTs get there, and they're working on her and stuff, and it wasn't until our officers got there that, and all the information from the scene started coming in, that I was just like slowly just started roiling, because it was, and I'm getting goosebumps right now working myself up with this,
Mhm.
because it was a mother, that had 5 children in the residence, and her children were waking up to her overdosed and dead in the living room, and I
Wow.
was pissed, because I'm like, I mean, I have children. I mean, that's like my
She has 8 children.
identity is a mother. Like, I'm starting my career as a grandmother because I spent my time raising my children. Now I'm like, okay, well, what am I going to do when I grow up? And just that right there it hit me really hard, just because the inconsideration of to bring children into the world and have such disregard for what that trauma is going to do to them as they grow older. So that one was really, really the first one that I was just like, sorry, I have to adjust my that really I reacted to. That was, and have not been very many calls that I'm just like, ooh, that one was the first one that I felt on a personal level. The best,
It
the
is all good.
best uh, call is hands down. I had an active shooter, which isn't the best part, but I also had 3 very intoxicated individuals,
Mhm.
and
None of them would listen. I made them put me on speakerphone and put the phone in the middle of the table so that I could yell at all of them. And the female, this is funny, just happened to be named Linda.
Oh
And
no.
none of them were listening, and they're all yelling. And I'm like, listen, Linda. And I'm like, it's a serious call. And as soon as I said it, I had to mute my mic because I just realized that I just yelled, listen, Linda, on the radio.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did everybody hear that? Did everybody hear that? And I look around, and everybody in the center is just like, I mean, there's only 5 of us, but they're all just like, oh my God, like that just had a great outcome. It was good. It got their attention. But yeah, that's my fun one. I'm just like, I gotta say it. I got to say, listen, Linda. Yeah.
That is amazing. I had something similar, not Linda, but it was another one where I thought this is the only time I'm going to get a chance to do this,
Yeah.
so I'm going to go ahead and do it. And there was this little old lady who would call in every so often, and she just wanted to talk. It was the middle of the night, and she actually fell asleep on the phone with me. And I said, "Excuse me, Annie? Annie, are you okay? Are you okay, Annie?" Because
That's awesome.
when else would I get the chance to do
Right.
that? So
Yeah.
I went for it, and my coworkers in there, they're like, they were busting up, and then afterwards, they're just, "I can't believe you did that." And I said, "I got the chance.
Right?
I was gonna do it."
Take those opportunities when they come. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. No, Josie, what about you? What about some earlier calls, a call that sticks with you, anything like that?
So, the first call that I can remember that like I had to have a debrief on
Mhm.
was a rough one. Because it was a 16-year-old teenage girl who got into a fight with her sister, and her sister said, "Just go kill yourself." And she went into a room and hung herself. And I get a call from stepmom. I'm on the phone with her while dad is doing CPR.
Mhm.
And of course, they get her to the hospital and everything. And I was pretty sure she was gone. Um, and then we get to, I go off shift because, that's how it happens.
Right.
And I got into work the next day, and they're like, "Hey, she made it." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? That's incredible. That's a wonderful," especially because I found out that the dad was the fire chief.
Oh, man.
And so he'd been doing CPR, and I'm like, sweet. And then turns out there was actually another teenager that night that ended up, I don't remember what, I think his might have been a car accident or something. He's the one that made it, mine didn't. So having that, like, sweet, like, and then no, never mind. And of course, this was my first agency, so it's very small community. So then I get to see it in the newspaper and all this stuff with this memorial, and I get a, you know, a lot of now, a lot of our calls, we don't know who they are. We're in a big enough community that the names aren't gonna hit us or anything. We're not gonna hear really about it later.
The ones that get arrested, I do.
Yeah,
Because they were probably out of prison when I was out there. I'm like, oh, didn't maybe he was gonna go back there.
yeah. So so we, it's very different now, but it was a small agency. And so then I got to hear about it for weeks and about her life and everything. And at the time, and it turns out she had some mental health issues and stuff. And, but at the time I had, a niece who was about that age who had a younger sister. I mean, this is Jackie.
This is my children.
Who was living with me. And, she had some issues and stuff, and it just hit home because it was the same age grade gap, and it was the same, like, I can see them fighting and something like that happening. And
Yeah.
so that one was probably the first one that really sticks with me. Another one was it was when it became very apparent to me, like, the mental health issue is like an actual issue. When I got a call, it was actually one of the funniest calls for me. But it was also one of those tragic things because a lady called because her arm was stuck in her recliner,
Oh,
and she was frantic, like, out of this. I mean, she's calling me. Yeah, I'm a bitch because I'm not getting anybody there fast enough. I'm asking if there's any bleeding. Bitch, just get in here. And I'm just like, okay, what is happening? Your arms in, like, your arms. And it's just she was having a mental health episode, but she was out of her mind, thinking she was dying, and I was killing her. And so that one, but yeah, I mean, sitting there being like, your arm is stuck in a recliner, like, relax, lady,
Yeah.
but turned out she was just having a mental health episode. So it was like, okay, that one's weird. When I worked for the troopers, there wasn't, most of them were all like traffic stops and stuff. So that one wasn't, uh, there wasn't a whole lot. I mean, as far as calls go, there was a couple with officer safety stuff that happened, but other than that, there wasn't any like real memorable ones. Um, when I got here, my first week off training, I got to give CPR to a 3-year-old who drowned in the lake. And that one was tough because just listening to dad, come on, trying to get his son to become aware, and they got a pulse. So of course, then that hope is up. And I didn't find out for 3 weeks later, and I finally, got a hold of the EMS, and he didn't make it. So it's those ones that you don't really know, and you're like, ah, maybe they made it, maybe it's.
I remember that first like roller coaster of emotion. It was actually when I was in training, before I was even on the radio or call taking or anything. I was just sitting, listening the ride along,
Yeah.
and there was they were up sledding, and there was a mini avalanche, and the mom called in.
Yeah.
My son, he went off on this path, all the rest of us came down here. Well, his sled had veered off, and then so we had rescue going up there and everything. And when I left shift for that day, last I heard was they were there. Like there was somebody there with him. They were transporting him. Like, and it never even crossed my mind that he wouldn't have made it, because I mean he just went off the trail, right? And it like I I was it was a success story to me, and I went home, didn't even think about it. And I came into work the next morning, and Jacob's like, yeah, he went into cardiac arrest and died. I'm like, come again? Wait, what? Like I hadn't even prepared myself to come in and like ask for an outcome, because in my mind, when I left that day, the kid was good. He was back with his
Right.
family. He was going, and that was my, and I'm glad it happened early on, because it was like this slap in the face, like, oh wait, you can't ever have any expectations. And over half the time, we don't know what the outcome is going to be.
Right, exactly. There's that closure that we have
Yeah.
to deal with, that you get these calls, and a lot of them you don't end up finding out. And I have to say really quick that out of all of the episodes, there's been some unique pieces in every episode. This is the first time ever that I believe someone has mentioned an avalanche. So in
It's
Canada,
Alaska.
yeah, exactly. In
Yeah.
Canada, they were talking about how bears are more of a nuisance than dogs in the yard and
Yeah.
stuff. And then in Australia, there was talk about like these huge hunter spiders that are like that big that
Yeah.
eat huge
Oh
rats and
no,
stuff.
no, no.
So
Spiders. Mm-mm, mm-mm. Yeah.
so this with an avalanche, yeah, that adds on to my list of different things that
Yeah.
I've heard. But yeah, no, you go home, just like you said, you go home sometimes
Mhm.
and you think a call is going a certain way, and then you find out different when you come in. You're like, shit. Or sometimes something will happen and you're supposed to be called and no one calls you,
Right.
let you
Right.
know, and you come in on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always amazing to me how, we'll either get 25 calls for a little fender bender, on the side of the road. Everybody's fine, no big deal. And then there'll be a rollover with 5 people injured, and nobody calls. Or you get one call, hey, did somebody call in on this? It's astounding to me, like the difference and how you can't, you know, how and you can't figure out, and you can't tell them, oh yeah, no, you're good. We didn't get a call on this, or we did, because you have to take them all. But it's crazy to me, the things some people will call in on 100 times, and then other ones, the most serious
Like
ones.
the fireworks. The fireworks, like right after 4th of July, we got these calls about these fireworks going off in the neighborhood. And like we got a ton. It's not unusual. I mean, it was just past 4th of July. Tons of people calling about these fireworks. And you're like, people, no, it was for like the
Anyway.
Civil War between the high schools or something. Anyway, it was something normal that was
Mhm.
like regulated. They had permits and everything, and like we're getting calls everywhere. And um one guy called in, and I'm like, okay, yeah, we've gotten calls about that. We have some officers on their way. And the lady's in the background going, well, I have my grandbabies here and they need to get to sleep. And I'm like, all I'm thinking is, do you want me to have the officers stop by and sing him a lullaby? Like, I already told you we have officers responding. I'm not
Put
entirely
some
sure
noise
what
canceling
was not clear
headphones
about
on
that.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting. I think the media plays in a lot with that as well, on people thinking, certain things that can or cannot be done. And
Yes.
as you were talking about, the avalanche and different pieces.
Yeah.
Now that we know more about the both of you and such, I want to go into some of these calls
Right.
that that were on the show.
Oh.
Now, this first one, and this one is like 2.5 minutes long. So I think at the very end is where they say what the mom is doing to her grown ass son.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure what all is going to play here.
Okay.
So, or just going to go ahead and listen to it, and then we'll talk here. And man, and just looking at some of the previews right here on my screen, and seeing your coworker there next to you, it makes so much more sense. That's why she
Right.
would,
Yeah. Let it
because
explain.
you're in training. So,
Yeah.
all right, I'm going to go ahead and hit play on this.
Okay.
911, what's status of the emergency?
412 Drive. My husband got into a fight with our neighbor, and he's drunk.
Can you tell me exactly what happened?
He and my neighbor got into a fight, and now he's trying to go over it, and he's fighting both me and his mom.
The calls we get in Alaska are so incredibly unique. And it has to do with the diversity of people that are here. It's like a perfect storm almost, in that you never know what you're going to hear on the other end of the line. So do you know what the altercation was about between the two?
I have no idea. All I know is he's drunk. I don't want him to go to jail.
Nope, you did the right thing.
Are they able to separate?
Are you able to separate?
Well, the neighbor, they're done.
Okay, but what's happening right now?
I'm going to stop right there really quick, because that was one of those points where when she had said something, then you repeat it. I was like,
Yeah.
something's going on. Something is up there. But also at this point, it says that there's 17 minutes before somebody gets there. And I remember taking the time down and thinking, wow, okay, there's got to be more to this, but they're not going to show all of it.
No.
But okay, I'll hit play and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Okay.
Trying to fight the mom and her.
My mother-in-law is trying to stop him from going over there because he keeps saying he's going to hurt him.
Okay, I just want to make sure that everyone in that house is going to be safe. I hear a lot of disturbance back there.
I don't think he's going to hurt us.
Check weapons.
Does he have any weapons?
No, I moved him on.
Okay, what is he saying in the background?
They're not gonna shoot you. He's trying to convince his mom that he needs to let them go, because if she doesn't, the troopers are going to shoot him when they get to the front door.
Okay.
When the troopers are going to shoot him.
Is there any way that your mom can separate from him?
It's his mom, not
Okay.
mine. No, I'm not going to back off. No, you're going to stay right there. And now he's laying down on the bedroom floor.
Is that your mother screaming?
That's my mother-in-law.
Why is she screaming?
Because she's got him in a chokehold.
Okay, we really need to get those two separated. I can hear her screaming, "Don't hurt me."
No, man, I'm watching this, and he just like
He just went outside?
No,
What?
she just spanked him.
The mother just spanked him?
And then it ends right there. You just hear like, yow, ow.
I remember hearing she has him in a chokehold, and I'm like at my console, and I step out, and I'm like, I want to meet this mom. Like, all I
Right?
can see is like this like little old lady, like, get over here, boy.
Right. Yeah,
I'm like, that
exactly.
is my kind of mom right there.
Right.
And this call was so confusing and trying to navigate it, because the wife, she would sound like frantic, like, oh my gosh, there's a DV in progress, and then she would start giggling because she's having the same reaction that we are, like, come again, like the mom is spanking the grown-ass man, like, what?
Yeah.
Because didn't she say at one point, like, she just pulled his pants down and spanked
No,
him?
she was trying to pull his pants up because his pants were falling down. And so, like, all I can picture is, like, basically me as a mom, if my son were to come out with his, his boxers hanging out, get your pants up, So
Yeah.
it was such a confusing call because obviously the guys escalated, and I'm pretty confident the female probably was intoxicated as well, but like she refused to like get away from him, and it was all escalating because she wouldn't leave him alone. She was like trying to, and then mom's sitting there like, "You will do as you're told." I'm like, the man is drunk off his ass. Like maybe just let him go sleep it off. But nope, they wanted to tussle, and so like in those situations where there's DV, you want them to get separated, and
Right,
both
of
the,
course.
the women in the case are like, well, no, we're gonna solve this, and I'm like, yeah, but you called 911, so. And then when mom went in there, and then they're like, she has a heart condition. I'm like, well, this is fantastic. Now we need to get EMS rolling for the mom who's gonna have a
Right,
heart attack
yeah,
trying to
yeah.
spank her own son. And
It changes the whole
yeah, because it
level
turned
of
out
the
that guy
call.
was like 38. Yeah, he wasn't like a 20-year-old. He was like up
So
there.
literally
grown-ass man.
grown-ass man. Yeah, he was straight up. That would be
Well,
like my mom spanking me.
and yeah, exactly. And it was really funny because he finally ended up getting away from them and
Yeah.
going in the yard, and literally went out into the yard and curled up in a ball and passed out.
Yeah, that's where he was when the
When
troopers,
the troopers got there, he went outside and passed out drunk.
Oh man.
And when they woke him up, because they had to go to the neighbors to see what the altercation was about, if there was anything else. And while the troopers are there, the neighbors and the drunk guy, I guess they were all intoxicated, ended up like hugging it out and crying, like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, man." And I'm just like, what
All right.
just happened? Like, it's like, what just happened?
That's what happens when you get spanked by your mama.
I know, right?
I know,
Yeah,
man.
you go
Yeah.
and apologize. Sorry.
Brings it home. Well, that is amazing. I love that we actually, those who are watching and listening, got a little closure as well from that.
Right? Yeah.
Got to find out a little more.
Yeah, a little bit too much PBR.
You know what I loved? There was a question in there. It wasn't there, but there was
Uh-huh.
a question you asked. You specifically asked if he had any shoes on.
I did.
And I was like sitting there going, why is she asking about his shoes? And I think I asked you, why'd you ask about his shoes? And it was like, because he wasn't going to get very far barefoot or like, but I thought it was the strangest question. And then when she explained it, I'm like, I mean, that's a good question.
Well, yeah,
I
because
mean-
I figured,
Yeah.
if he's coherent enough to make sure he has shoes on, that he's going to go run to the neighbors or something. But if he doesn't have shoes on, then he hasn't thought this through, and he's probably going to go stumble in the backyard and pass out. And then
Yeah.
it was fun when the
Or
wife
come
goes,
back 'cause it's too
he
cold.
has one shoe on. I'm like, oh yeah, he's totally going to pass out before he can climb that fence.
Yeah, but I just thought that was interesting because I was like, why is she asking about his shoes?
Well done. Well
That's
done.
not in training. I don't know.
Yeah.
I was just go. That was
Thinking
gut call.
outside the box.
Gut call.
Yeah.
Outside the box. Now the next one here, Josie, this one's for you.
Okay.
And so this one is about a minute and a half long, it looks like. So I'm gonna go ahead and play this, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll talk through it here.
Was she wearing a helmet at the time of the crash?
No, it wasn't not any particular weird.
Okay.
We've got screaming in the background. 10-4, we've got helicopter license BT 15, 10-4.
Is that our writer?
That's our writer.
Oh.
Any change at all?
She's still moaning. She's still unconscious.
Do you know her name?
Her name?
Do you know her last name?
What's her last name? I'm sure. What's her last name? We don't know. All we know is.
Okay.
Sorry.
Do we have a description of that 16-year-old female?
They just unknown last.
I know I'm asking because my daughter's 16 years old and she's out on Connect River.
I see. Okay.
How is she conscious? How's her breathing?
Don't move your head. Don't move your head. Don't let her move your head. Guys?
I think I need to listen to her screams so I can tell if it's my daughter or not.
Oh.
That's where that clip ends. I literally have goosebumps right now. So
Yeah, just listening to it again.
I know.
Ooh.
yeah, and they show the camera keeps going back and forth between you and coworker Miles, who's on the call, who's taking it, and you can see the concern on your face right in the beginning before you even say anything. And I remember, as a person watching it, I'm thinking, what is going on? Like, there's got to be some sort of connection. Maybe it's family or something like that. And sure enough, there was that connection. So kind of talk us through this, like what I mean, and this is all, like, of course they're there recording and everything too, and
Yeah.
this is going
And
on.
well, and so that, like, very rarely was I cognizant of the film crew.
Yeah.
I knew the minute that I was like, oh shit, because, well, here's the thing. I generally know where my children are at all times. But my daughter happened to be out babysitting that night, out that way off the river. And, the gal she babysits for thinks she walks on water. My daughter's very trustworthy. And so I was like, it's possible that one, they're out doing, wheeling around, as a family with a bonfire and stuff. It's possible that they could have done that. Because that's not something they don't call me and be like, hey, can we take your 16-year-old daughter out? And I totally would have trusted them to do that. That would be fine. And then a second possibility, because she's so trustworthy, be like, hey, my friends are meeting out there. Do you mind if I go?
She's also 16.
And she's 16 and she's very trustworthy and blah, blah. Yeah. And and so I was like, I don't think it's her, but there's a possibility. And then, Scott came up and I'm like, so we're both trying to blow up their phone. It's 2 a.m.
Right.
So they're not answering, of course. And so I'm like, we're not.
I messenger on Facebook. Like, hey, what are you doing, girl? Like, trying to be cool aunt, like, hey.
Yeah. And so, and Scott and I are talking, and he's like, I don't think it's her. And I'm like, I don't think it is either, but there's a possibility, and we can't get a hold of our daughter, and we don't know who this person is. And then that call, the way they aired it, it was, quick, over in 5 minutes, whatever. Yeah. It was over an hour of not knowing who it was. Finding out her name. And it was over an hour of trying to, because Life Med had to go out there. I was dispatching EMS, so I knew everybody was going out there. Troopers were going out there, but they couldn't get to her because they had to go like ford a river, to get their cars out there. And finally, when I was out of the room, and when I said, can we get a description? And of course the description comes through, which does not help at all.
Right.
Because it sounds like my daughter still. And I'm like, well, that was not helpful. And then when I went out of the room is when Rhonda got a hold of the trooper and said, hey, we need to get somebody out there. We need an ID on this because it could be Josie's daughter. Right. And I didn't know that had happened because I was out of the room when that happened. And so it was definitely a relief. Like I said, I wasn't 100% that it wasn't her, but I didn't think it was her, but it was enough. There was enough in place for me to be like, oh shit, this could be, there's a possibility. Yeah. And then afterwards, obviously it wasn't her. And that my immediate thought was, oh, I'm relieved. But then I think I actually said, I'm like, I want to know who her parents are now, because we need to call them. We need to talk to them immediately, because what I just went through, they don't know. And I didn't think she was going to make it, because that screaming and stuff, that's a TBI all day long. And it took so long for her to get anybody. And of course, that was one of those, I didn't know what happened. In fact, until the show played, I thought she was dead.
Wow.
Or brain injury. I didn't know that she'd made a recovery. And then the show aired, and then crazy thing, 2 days later, I get a message on Facebook from a girl named Marissa saying, hey, is your daughter's name Marissa? Because I watched this show. My aunt watched it, said I should watch it. And I had a motorcycle accident. And when I was watching it, I could see you mouth the word Marissa when you said my daughter. So was your daughter Marissa? And so it was the gal who'd gotten in the 4-wheeler accident, got a hold of me on Facebook, sent me a message. No, and she was like, well, I didn't know, nobody got a hold of me, and I was like, well, it's possible they got a hold of the hospital or something to get an update to find out if you were okay. And then, bless her heart, she said, I'm really sorry for making you worry.
Oh.
I know. And I'm like, oh, geez, like, I'm just glad you're alive. Like,
right,
and you're doing well, and so that was really cool, that getting
very cool,
that update. Like,
I think I think you end up saying in there, like after the break, like after you find out and everything, there's a part where you end up saying, now we pray for that family. And and that was there towards the end. So that, dude, that is awesome. Like, again, like goosebumps, goose pimples straight up.
Yeah.
Like that is crazy.
My poor daughter, when she got home the next day, she got mauled by everyone. And she's like, nothing, why would I wouldn't do that. And I'm like,
This is documented forever.
you think you would, but
Sure.
teenagers don't have whole brains.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
they make stupid decisions and
Yeah.
you never know. And
Right.
but so she did get, and and my husband, he's a cool cucumber. Like I'm really laid back.
It's annoying.
I'm really laid back. He's equally as laid back, and if maybe not more.
Way more.
And he even he was like, no, it's fine, like it's not her. And I'm like, no, it probably isn't. But he's like, she wouldn't do something like that. I'm like, well, I mean, we think kids don't do a lot of things that they do. So you were a teenager.
Yeah.
So
So then, speaking of your husband, so we're gonna roll right into this next one here.
nice segue. Look at that.
I don't have a clip or anything, but this one I'm just gonna kind of talk through it.
Yeah.
Now on the show, there's a call that comes in, and I'm not sure which episode this one actually aired on, but Rhonda's the call taker at the time, and this is a renter that's being disorderly. Ended up hitting the caller, which was the landlord, but hit the person on the head. And then hit that person's husband, and there was like this whole fight that was breaking out. Now there was, which is the suspect had a club too, I think.
So that was actually
Right.
a 2-day call.
Was it really?
Yes.
Okay.
So the first day, the landlords, the elderly couple, he gets attacked. She grabs his balls, and and then he gets transported.
I believe they said
testicles, scrotum, whatever.
Whoever the jewels.
Yeah, in the tidbits, okay? The
Yep.
tendons.
Grab on the neck. Yep.
So he actually got transported to the hospital. But they were like, nope, there's no crime. We're not sure what happened. And then the following day,
And this is where we're in dispatch going, I heard what happened. Just listen to what we said and go arrest her ass. And that the frustration of being like,
of course.
I know there was a crime committed. Why didn't they arrest her?
but that's the thing, they have to be able to articulate. So then the next day, they go out because now daughter and son of the landlords are on scene, and the renter's attacking again. That's what they're saying. And so troopers go out, and they're like, no, she's not doing anything. They're just trying to get her evicted. And that's what they were going with. Well, so troopers leave, and then they call back and say, she's attacking us with a club. And so, all the troopers are on another disturbance at this point, and it's outside of WPD territory, but they need WPD to go assist because they don't have anybody to go. And we have an active disturbance. So Wasilla 23 gets sent out there. And it was so funny because I knew the camera was there, but I'm like, whatever, he's doing his job. And then all of a sudden Jackie pops over. She's like, they're sending your man. And I'm like, thanks for pointing that out. Now the camera's like, oh,
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, we were fine without that. No, he's just Wasilla 23. Now he's Josie's husband. Let's get the camera on her. And so I'm like, am I supposed to be like all acting nervous? I'm like, because I'm not like.
She's just like, let's see what he does.
Yeah.
This will be fun.
And, that was you.
That was me.
Oh.
All you. Giving you a hard time this whole time.
Yeah,
I did it.
So he goes out there, and when he gets out there, he all of a sudden the radio squelches, and he says 10-10. Well, 10-10 means he's fighting, but all of a sudden the radio squelches, and it sounds like he's screaming, and I'm like, what is happening?
The squawk.
Right.
Yeah. And then Rhonda's still on the phone, and she's saying she wants her, him to kill her, and and the people are reporting that she's attacking him, and I'm like, well, I bet he's having fun right now.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu, baby.
Yeah, because that's the thing about my husband. Like, he's a new police officer. We moved up here. I went back to dispatch, and he went from being a tire guy. He worked for Les Schwab for 16 years, and then he went to being a police officer. So this is all new. In fact, yesterday was his 1-year graduation from academy. So.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So, but he's out there, and my husband, he loves to grapple. He's jiu-jitsu. He loves to grapple. He's a wrestler. And so he often forgets he has tools. Like, he forgets he has like a taser or a baton or, handcuffs. He's like, all right, let's wrestle, and
mace.
So, yeah. So you know what?
He'll never use OC.
Ever. He has a very adverse, I think it's a ginger thing, but they have very adverse reactions to it. Anyway, so he's out there wrestling, and it was funny because when the show aired,
Mhm.
and it says she's attacking him, and that's what the caller says,
Yeah.
and he looks and he's like, "She didn't attack me," and I was like, "Do you see what we deal with? That's what they said was happening."
Right.
So
Going off
that's
of
what
you're
we
being
hear is
told.
happening,
Yeah.
and but it was really funny because like the crew, when they went out and did our bow shoot and everything, they wanted us to talk about that call. And my daughter, our 11-year-old's out there, and they're wanting to know what happened out there. So he uses her as like the perp. And he's like, "Okay, so this is what I did." And he like leg sweeps her, throws her on the ground. And I'm like, pretty sure they're not going to air you beating up on 11-year-olds. Like,
Right. Yeah.
just throwing that out there.
Sir,
dude.
we can't
Yeah.
show that, sir.
But yeah, I mean, when I kind of sounded like an asshole during that show because at the end I'm like, I'm not going to treat him like he's any more special than anyone else.
Honestly, no, it's quite the opposite. Like she's just like, let's see what my honey's gonna do. Like, I mean, I know she's worried, but I know there's like this pride, like, hey, my man's gonna handle this.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I have yet
part of
to.
it.
Yeah, I know. I take it back. The other day he went on a call, and I'm like, oh shit, what just happened? And I can't remember what call it was now.
Well, they really did play onto not only the dramatics part of it, but the family. So the bow hunting, they showed some of that, and then it goes into the call. And I remember right before the commercial break, they show like a close up of you as they have the audio playing in the background of all the screaming and everything going on, where you really don't know what it is, but they also flash that family time that you guys are spending together, and then like, damn.
I know my daughter was super stoked because she's standing next to me. I'm like, Deirdre, you're on TV. Jason said that. She's like, oh, I saw myself. What was really funny. So my husband and I were very affectionate, and when they were filming us, we hold hands all the time, and they were hilarious because they're like, ha ha, we caught you holding hands, and I'm like,
I dare you to find it without the holding.
Yeah,
hands.
like actually, it was funny because they had us do this whole like meeting after work and stuff, and he always opens my door, and I was like, honestly, you know what you should be upset about is the fact that he's a little shy right now, and he didn't grab my butt like he usually does. So, like, you got a handhold, like,
Right. Yeah, we're keeping it G,
Yeah. But it was funny because he was like,
funny.
when he's in uniform, he did not like having that camera around, and he's just like,
No, I bet. I mean, especially in this day and age with certain shit that's going on, in society and stuff.
We've been really, really fortunate being up in Alaska because even the criminals are pro police. Like they'll be like, man, I know you're just doing your job.
We got the car thief. Hey, there's this car over here. I'm pretty sure it's stolen. It wasn't me, but it's on my territory, so maybe come and get it.
But so I mean, we're very fortunate. Alaska has the majority of people are very pro police. We didn't have any of the big riots or the rallies or anything like that.
That's
and
cool.
really, like, I'm sure there are some out there. Like we have a ton of like 1098 people that are like hostile towards law enforcement and stuff. But for the most part, we have a very pro back the blue atmosphere up here. So I'm super grateful to be up here where my husband's a police officer. Where I don't have to worry about him going out and like just getting hunted down.
Right. No, exactly. So I want to wrap up as we go into the wrap up of this episode. This has been amazing to have you guys on here, just talking back and forth, sharing war stories, just all different types of stuff. This has been good, and of course, learning more about the show, what it was like for the both of you, and again, the fact that you were in training during this time. It's just like the fact that you're jumping into a profession and training all during COVID-19.
And how old you are too. You're an old lady too.
So,
My grandkids might watch this.
So this last clip, and I'm not sure how long it goes because the whole thing is like 4.5, almost 5 minutes, but there's only the one piece that I want to play through here, and hopefully it doesn't go back and forth because I was hoping it was just the one. So we'll see how it happens, but I'm not going to set it up. We're just going to go ahead and go for it.
I can't. I'm scared.
911, what's the address of the emergency?
Old Ridge Trail. Okay, what's going on? There's a grizzly bear that has been stalking us.
There's a grizzly bear?
Yeah.
Did the bear actually attack you?
It charged us twice. We bear sprayed in front of it, and the bear ran away. And then it came back charged. Sprayed it again. The bear is coming back to you? We don't know yet. How old are you? 19 years old. I was so scared.
How big was it?
12 feet tall.
12 feet?
I mean, it's the biggest thing I've ever seen. I'm freaking terrified right now. Do you have any more bear spray, or did you deploy it all? I believe I deployed it all. Do you have any weapons on you? Any guns? No, ma'am. Do you have any flares or anything? No.
For a brown bear, you want to play dead, and a black bear, you want to fight back.
Okay, really quick before I go on with this. I didn't know that. Like there was something you guys were saying that I was like, what? Really?
There's actually a sign
Uh-huh.
at the beginning of that trail that says those exact words.
Okay. Hold on.
Fun fact, I didn't know that either. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm new to Alaska. Yeah. So yeah, there's a sign there. One, this call was like 45 minutes.
Instead of like a minute and a half that we're about to listen to.
Yeah. So they cut out all the part where I'm yelling at these children to get their asses back on the trail because they went up the mountain in the bear's territory instead of going to the trail. And I'm like,
oh, so tempting fate. Okay.
Right, yeah. I'm like, you need to get back to the trail. One, they'd never hiked up there before. Two, I'm asking all these things and in my mom mind going, what, why would your parents let you go up there without all of these things?
Because they're grown-ass women.
They're not. They didn't even have a gun. So I'm like, there's a sign that says there's bears, right? There's a bear. You know, there's bears there. Like, I mean, kudos, they had the bear spray. But why didn't you have 4 cans? Like, why didn't you each have like holster? I don't know. Like all these things. And then when I'm telling them you need to get back on the trail, they were all sassy pants. Like, well, we're going up. And I'm like, girl, this is not turning into a search and rescue. You need to find your way back to the trail. And so like they didn't show all of that. And I'm like, oh, look at, they're just showing me be maternal and like informative. And I'm like, like you are not listening to me. And making them tell me, what do you see right now? And are you sure you know where you're going? Well, we think it's here. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, yeah, I was incredibly frustrated because they didn't listen. And then they step on the dog. And I'm like, what? Oh,
Wait,
and they're kind of joking. Oh, that's just our dog. I'm like, you mentioned that you have bear bait with you. So,
yeah,
you know, throw that out.
Okay, hold on just 1 second. Let me play the rest of this then. Hold on.
Okay.
Did I lose you?
You're very far.
What was that? What did I just hear?
Oh, I just stepped on the dog.
Oh, okay. You just stepped on your dog. Okay.
Yeah. That was Jackie's, like, that voice she gave, but I'm like, ooh. Oh, that's cute. That's real cute. Yeah, you just stepped on the dog.
Okay. Oh, thank you so much. We currently have a hiker that was being stalked by a bear that has deployed bear spray. There's 2 people and 2 dogs in the group. The bear has charged them now twice.
10-4. It's possible that it's not kill.
Being scared is completely natural. Don't you worry about it. I'm right here with you, okay?
Blame them. I wouldn't want to be chased by a bear either.
That's legit.
Running uphill, no less.
Are you still walking that trail?
We're still heading up.
All right.
We do have a trooper on his way too, okay? They're looking for you guys. Get there as fast as possible. I'm gonna try and head back to the trail.
Yeah, Mark, can you ask them if they passed 1 or 2 benches?
Have you passed the first or second bench?
Past the second. Okay, you're past the second. Ooh,
You're at the top?
The top.
Looks like I have 2 troopers headed that way.
No sign of the bear yet. No sign of the hikers.
So I'm going to stay on the line with you, okay?
Past the second bench. Heading up towards the beach.
I just don't know what to do. Like, somebody's coming up, like they're going to find us. No.
We have made contact.
In contact with hikers, everyone 1060. Woohoo!
They made it.
They made it. No bear attack today.
Wait for it. Just wait. Oh, he's not gonna play it. Yeah. Okay.
That's where it ends.
So right after that, Jackie's like, "I'm sure they learned a valuable lesson," and then my smart ass remark in the back going, "But did they?" I'm like, okay, so I see what they're doing here. They're like playing it out as I'm like the optimistic, and Josie's like, "What?" I know, like exact opposite. Exact opposite. But
Well,
yeah,
it makes more sense when Rhonda says going uphill, no less, because they were continuing going up.
Yeah. They like in their mind they were looking up and there was a peak up there, so they're just gonna keep going towards that, except for the trails over here. So I'm sitting. Yeah, these are the people that go up in the farmhouse upstairs. This is the one that makes those stupid horror movies, right? They run to the chainsaw instead of to the running car. That one commercial.
I had a guy call me once. There was a beach property. There were 3 kids out there that were shooting off fireworks, and it was really dry. Like they had a red flag for like I don't know how long they had one going, but nobody was supposed to be burning it or anything. And they were out on the beach and they set off some bottle rockets, and they backfired and went into the grass, lit everything on fire. These are $1 million homes that it ended up going up to, and these houses are catching fire. And one guy calls me up and he goes, I see like the whole beach is on fire and everything, and my neighbor's house is on fire. Do you think that I should evacuate? Like, should I leave? And I said, sir, we have officers and everyone out there trying to evacuate people. That you need to get out of your house. And he goes, my house just caught fire. I'm getting out of the house now. Ding. And then that's all I hear. I'm like, dude, go.
Yeah, it is amazing to me how like people call in, and like my instinct would be I'm gonna handle this, like I'll just handle it. And like how many people call that you have to walk them through. Okay, and honestly, it almost makes me feel sorry for people like that. They don't have that ability to make those decisions for themselves. Like they need to be told this is what I'm doing, because there's I feel like there's like almost like an insecurity that I'm not going to do it right. So I need somebody to tell me how to do it. No, but it's really great because they call to get that, and then they don't take it. And then they don't take it. But
yeah, well, yeah, in an emergency, you're not thinking straight either. And but I think that's one of those things is people are looking for direction, any direction.
Yeah.
And it comes off like that, and then you're the one who's left there like, really?
Yeah.
But
you, like I'm pretty sure I told you to do that. Yeah. I had a lady call in one time. She called in because she wanted the police to come because her son wouldn't come out of his room because he was playing his video games. And I'm like, okay, well, what do you want the officers to do? Well, I want them to scare him. I'm like, ma'am, we try not to make children afraid of police. We want them to call when they need help, Well, he's not a kid. Oh, okay, how old is he? He's 28. And I just wanted to say, ma'am, you needed to solve this problem about 20 years ago. These are the consequences. You're outside of your window of solving whatever's happening right now.
Yeah.
This isn't a law enforcement issue. This is a parenting. Sometimes I wish we had like a button, like just a parenting type. Like this is just a parenting issue. Yeah. So.
Well, it has been amazing to have the both of you on here. Thank you.
Well, thank you
so much. And so I always end with a question. And this is not one that I had sent to you all, but it's yeah, I know. Well, it's gonna be a little different for the both of you actually. Same topic but different viewpoints. So, Jackie, for you, for anyone who is thinking about getting into the profession, because you're so new and stuff, but 9 months in and everything, and you are obviously digging this job, everything that you do. What is some advice that you have for those who are thinking about getting into it and those who are in training that may have hit those spots where, just like you were saying, and I said it as well, there were points where I thought, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this. But if And I think to me personally, I think that's a good thing for people to think that, because if you go in thinking you're the shit and you're going to do it, you're the person who might end up later on freezing up.
Right.
But having that little bit of nervousness, like we both talked about that we've had and stuff, what is some of that advice that you have for those who are getting into it? And then Josie, on your part of it, for someone who's been there for 7 years, what's advice to you, from you for those who are more seasoned, interacting with those that are new coming in? But Jackie first.
So I would say if somebody's thinking about getting in dispatch, really do a deep self-evaluation, because in order to go in my opinion, to be a dispatcher, you have to be able to separate yourself out from the situation.
Right.
And a lot of people are very, most people have some empathy, and that empathy is genuinely a good trait, and it's important in dispatch as well. But there comes a point where you have to put that aside, because you can't pick sides, because it will destroy you. Like if you get a call from a mom that's frantic because her ex won't give her children, and he's keeping them from her, and then the officers get on scene, and you've like really like invested in this mom getting her children back, and then the officers get on scene and mom's sitting in her car with heroin tar on the dash, and the drug dealer boyfriend in the I mean, you can't invest yourself in the storyline. And I'm not saying you have to just assume everybody's a liar, but being being able to separate yourself from that person's situation and just get the facts down so that you can give your team the most information possible without having it shaded in any way. And I think in order to do that, you have to really know who you are as a person, because if you don't, it's so easy to get sucked into other people's stories. If you don't have that grounding, that base of, I know who I am as a person, I know what my core values are, I know where I stand, it's really hard to not get sucked into those. And when you get sucked into those things, you take them home because you don't stop thinking about them. You're like, okay, what do I do different? And you can consume yourself with those thoughts. So if you don't know who you are, or you're still like insecure or something, and not able to separate out the job of, I'm going to do everything I can for the situation without becoming part of the situation. That's what I would say to dispatchers that are thinking about doing it.
You're so insightful.
Well, I am old. I'm a grandma.
Right.
I'm going to say that again. I'm a grandma.
I'm not. And I'm the older twin. So
separate away.
You do the math.
That's funny. So what about you, Joseph? On your end?
And my question was, as a season, like, how do I deal with new people coming in?
Yeah.
My piece of advice, as we talked about earlier, was there's generally a lot of hostility towards new people, and perceived hostility. Well, I mean, perception is everything,
right? Yeah.
And I think that while it's definitely a serious job, I think we need to be more welcoming to people, because especially now with the way more people are in society and stuff, they need to feel good about themselves, and constantly, even if they do a good job and they're not feeling like they have done a good job, because they're, a lot of times it's like, well, you should have done this or you should have done that. I think that when it comes to training and stuff, we need to be more open to the possibility that people learn differently, and also not so hard on them. Because I think that we can show the reality of the job without making them feel like they are completely stupid and inadequate.
Right.
And I think that's what happens a lot is, when it comes to training and new people and stuff, then they tend to, it's a hard job. Like, it's something that, and here's the hardest part about training is there are 1,000 ways to do the same thing, and you have to figure out which one's best for you. And you're going to have 5 different trainers that do it all different, and you can get comfortable in one way, the one that they do it, and then you go to the next one and they're like, no, you're doing it completely wrong. Well, you just learned this and you're feeling really good about yourself, and then all of a sudden this new way, and they're like, no, everything you just learned, forget about it, like everything was wrong. And I think that's really important to have some consistency in training, and whether that's getting all the CTOs on the same page, not necessarily teaching the same things, but explaining to them how this is going to work instead of being like, no, she just taught you everything wrong. I think that's something that really is important for training programs to really come together on is, yes, we're all teaching something different, but the collective is going to be where it's at. Like, explain from the get-go, one, how do you learn? Two, so I'm going to teach you something, and then this person that you go to next, they're going to teach you something completely different. Doesn't mean it's wrong, doesn't mean it's different, because there's, like I said, 1,000 different ways to enter the same thing. And you just have to figure out which best for you. Like, I really enjoy using my NCIC stuff, to do a lot of history. Other people just like doing the CAD line, and doesn't mean it's wrong. Certain ways.
Same end result.
I'm a very fast typer, so being able to go in there and just type everything in, I can get that result at the same time as somebody else. So, and I think that's really important for training programs to understand, and people coming in as trainees, that you're going to get overwhelmed, and it's okay. You're going to hit a wall, and it's okay. You're going to go home and cry, and it's okay. It doesn't mean that that you're done. It means you're human. There was one day when I had a rough time training, and I came in the next day, and it was really great because, everybody's like, oh, we're surprised to see you and stuff. And it was really cool because one of the gals that I work with, Heather, I respect the hell out of her. She says, are you kidding me? I know that girl has way more pride than to let something like that happen. And I was like, all right, cool. And just having that little nod from someone who was very well respected in the center, having that little nod, like, all right, she's recognizing what I know about myself, which means that other people probably are too. They're just not saying it. And I think it's just, having a little boost, having somebody, and that's something like Jacque was saying, I'm a silver lining person. They call me the rainbow unicorn. I will always see, and that actually came from dispatch because everybody gets me rainbows and unicorns. My whole console is covered in rainbows and unicorns. Now I have a big tattoo of a rainbow unicorn.
At one point, I took crystals, like Swarovski crystals, and we rainbowed my headset. She had like crystal.
Nice.
Yeah,
it blinged it out.
But that's something that I think is really important. It doesn't mean that you're kissing anybody's ass, but I think it's important that people do hear, because in this job, we spend the entire day, 16 hours a day. We don't hear good things. Like, it's just, that's the reality of it.
Right.
Nobody calls us to say, hey, I'm having a great day. How are you? Nobody does that unless they're hiring shit, but it just doesn't happen. So I think it's important that we're there for each other, to be that positive, be like, hey, you know what? That really sucked. You did a great job, and I think if we spread that more around more, I think that a lot of people, when we're watching the ABC and stuff, when we're going woohoo or cheering each other on, I think honestly that there's a lot of dispatchers watching going, they're so full of shit. That is all for TV. But that's not, like, that's something that we do. Anytime there's a tough call, we'll turn around and be like, hey, Kristen, you did a great job on that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that sucked, but you did a great job. And I think that we just need to pump more of that. Yeah.
We were the same way. When Leah and I saw some of those pieces, that's what I think I loved the most about the show, was the fact that they were showing those parts.
Yeah.
Even the little, like, funny comments back and forth, because that stuff does happen.
Mm-hmm.
That's what really sold it for me, is thinking back and thinking about my coworkers. I mean, it was that camaraderie, we're there for each other. Our support system is each other. And we would do the same thing. We're like, oh yes, they got them, or this happened, or they're okay, or no, I agree with you fully. I'm glad that those pieces were in there. Some dispatch centers might not do that, but I think the ones that are really kind of connected, they're working like a well-oiled machine.
Mm-hmm.
It was fun.
Yeah.
No, we haven't. So I gotta say, Josie doesn't know this yet, but I'm gonna tell her right now.
Uh-oh.
So one thing that Josie does is she hates to hear people talk down about themselves, whether it's, oh my gosh, I'm fat, or oh my gosh, my hair looks like crap, or or this looks stupid on me, anything like that. Anytime Josie hears something like that, she's like, girl, like, you gotta have confidence, or like Josie and I both dress I don't know, like, I mean, we're not eccentric, but I mean, we dress it up. We go bougie sometimes. I
Yeah.
mean, like we like to like. I know, really great because on ABC we wore a
hoodie and jeans the whole time.
I know. I'm like our hairs. I mean, I regularly do my hair up in like Viking rolls and
like this.
Yeah. And I have really long hair, and I mean, we just do a lot of different things.
All
And
right, land the plane.
So anyway, Josie, anytime she wears something, then they'll go, "Oh, I can never pull that off." And Josie's like, "Girl, you can pull anything off. You just gotta have the confidence." So now, when Josie's not there, and I hear a comment, I'm like, "All right, I'm pulling a Josie here," and I'm like, "Girl," and tonight Rhonda actually pointed out, she's like, "It's really funny because when you do that, you like change the pitch of your voice, like you need to do that for Josie's voice or something, but really you don't. You sound exactly like her." So I'm like, "Oh." So Josie is represented even when she's not there as
That's awesome.
you just gotta be confident.
That's perfect. Well,
Yeah.
thank you both again very, very much for being on. This has
Yeah,
been
thank you.
excellent. And I appreciate the job that you do, and I look forward to seeing more of anything that comes out with the show as well. So I'll be right back with you here in just one moment. For those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that is going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, it's wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches Podcast. This episode has been sponsored by Rapid Deploy as well as In Digital. And this show will always be free, but if you're looking for any bonus content, any of the Singing Badly in My Car, discounts to the store, swag, t-shirts, anything like that, make sure to hit me up on patreon.com/WTT podcast. And this video can be seen on Facebook as well as YouTube and LinkedIn. And then the audio portion of this can be heard on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone.